Good evening, good evening. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Nationwide at 5. It's time for the nation's business, and as we told you in the cover story, the Prime Minister was on his feet in the House of Representatives. So we're going to switch gears and give you the main highlights of what he announced in the House this afternoon. But just before I get to that, Cliff, there was a JCF presser this afternoon.
Oh?
And a rather curious statement came out of it because I think Orsha Loy asked for an update on that investigation involving a director of the Integrity Commission. You'll recall Ryan Evans.
Yes, who
was robbed and
Right.
shot.
Right.
And you'd also recall, listeners, that the president of the chairman rather, of the Integrity Commission was rather critical of the police for not having provided an update in the last, 10 months? I think he said, on that shooting incident. And in a very, my word now, almost cynical way, he mentioned that it was in the middle of broad daylight.
In New Kingston.
In New Kingston.
The business district.
Business district. No bushes for the assailant to escape in, and yet the police had not provided an update. I found it rather curious that DCP Fitzbailey is telling us this afternoon that the police, they have not gotten any statement from the director of the Integrity Commission since the incident.
Mr. Ryan Evans.
In fact, DCP Bailey was appealing this afternoon for Mr. Evans to cooperate and provide a statement. I find that more than a little curious, considering the chairman went down the wicket
Yes.
in criticizing the JCF.
In the annual report.
Yes.
And the question one would have to ask, are we missing something here? Yeah? And more specifically, is Chairman Panton aware that Director Evans has not given a statement to the police? And why? Why not?
I would like to think you would have to be aware because I would hope the
How
directors
could
have
he
seen
be-
the
how
report
could
before
he-
it's released.
How could he be aware that Mr. Evans had not provided a statement? The police are still awaiting a statement and go down the wicket the way he did in the annual report.
Something is amiss.
Exactly. Something
Something's amiss.
is not adding up. Yes, because for the police to begin their investigations, it's only basic that you cover first base
Absolutely.
with a statement from the victim
Yes.
who would detail what happened, yeah, and the sequence of events
And
as a start.
And let's just be clear, for such a grave attack, it was a grave attack because you'd recall the emotions that flared that day,
Yes,
the statements that were made,
by Mr.
the executive director.
Greg
It was a
Christie.
very,
Yes.
very serious matter. So
Yeah.
I was completely shocked to be reading the newscast this afternoon. I had to say to Roby, did I hear that right? Is that what he said? That they've got no statement? And then to be appealing publicly for the statement?
from the director. I think there's something amiss. There's more to this.
Well, let us hope in
Yes.
in its style, as it usually does. By tomorrow morning, we'll have a statement clarifying what needs clarification.
You think so?
That has been its practice that when questions are raised, it releases a statement. But
Oh.
it is very odd, very, very odd to me. I find it most troubling.
Has the commission commented yet on that statement of Mr. Christie after Mr. Evans was robbed?
Not a
on that
word
day?
in English.
Okay.
Not a word.
All right.
To the
Nation's
Parliament now.
business.
Yes.
The Prime Minister this afternoon announced several measures through the National Housing Trust, the NHT, to help with the recovery as a result of Beryl. This is what the Prime Minister said.
Madam Speaker, I want to spend a little bit of time speaking about the NHT because there are some persons who have sustained damage but wouldn't necessarily qualify for grants. And the NHT is the main entity through which we will seek to provide assistance to those persons. So, Madam Speaker, the NHT has a multi-pronged response to support the immediate recovery efforts for persons directly impacted by Beryl and to bolster the long-term disaster resilience of communities. There is the peril insurance for NHT mortgages. The NHT will give a moratorium for NHT mortgages, and there is a special home improvement loan for roof and home repairs due to the hurricane. And we will also give a special home grant for vulnerable NHT contributors who sustained damage in the wake of Beryl. So for the peril insurance for NHT mortgages, all NHT mortgages are covered by the NHT's blanket house owners comprehensive policy, which includes coverage for damage caused by but not limited to fire, hurricane, windstorm, storm, tempest, cyclone, tornado, hail, full flood, and impact damage, however caused. Thus far, the Trust has had a number of inquiries and claims in the wake of Hurricane Beryl. The NHT has mobilized its branches in anticipation of this and is prepared to process the claims that may be submitted by mortgagors in the coming days. Again, every claim that is submitted has to be assessed, and I can't stress enough that a disaster does not suspend accountability.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness there in the House of Representatives this afternoon. He also announced a special arrangement for NHT contributors who need to carry out repairs.
In terms of the moratorium for mortgagors who have been affected by Hurricane Beryl and may need to prioritize urgent repairs to their property may apply for a brief moratorium of 3 to 6 months. This arrangement may facilitate some reprieve for persons recovering from the impact of the storm, especially as they prepare for back to school. Note that this special moratorium arrangement for mortgages impacted by the storm must be applied for. It is not a general moratorium. And of course, again, there would have to be an assessment of the impact on your income and your ability to recover from the impact of the storm. So, Madam Speaker, again, for those persons who have been impacted, but they may have a current difficulty, they may have been laid off, for example, because their job, their workplace was impacted by the storm. They could apply to the NHT for a 3 to 6 months moratorium whilst they get their affairs in order. So that is another way in which the government is going to help. The NHT will facilitate a special home improvement loan for existing NHT mortgages to assist in necessary repairs and home improvements to improve disaster resilience. This is a special facility aimed at supporting mortgagors who may need to supplement insurance arrangements in order to adequately complete repairs. This facility is also intended to support NHT contributors, including those who do not currently have a mortgage but may have suffered property damage due to hurricane. So, Madam Speaker, we have this special loan window, and we are encouraging those persons who suffer damage, who may not qualify for a grant from the government, to use this special loan window for the repair of roofs or your home. Then, Madam Speaker, we're going to give a special grant for vulnerable NHT contributors. So the NHT will provide a grant for contributors who sustained damage to their homes in the wake of Hurricane Beryl, and they can apply for a special home grant to assist in home repairs. This grant will be available subject to need and level of impact. Both contributors and mortgagors may apply. In addition to these measures, the NHT is also committing to support the national recovery effort, and the NHD will contribute $200 million to the restoration, reconstruction, and relocation.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Now, in addition to those housing grants, he's also saying that loans, he's also saying the Ministry of Labour and Social Security will facilitate grants and programs to assist those affected by the passage of the hurricane.
The various social programs managed by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security will be leveraged and utilized to provide a range of assistance to the affected population. So under the rehabilitation grant program, grants will be provided to micro-business operators. I use the term micro-business operators. To the small shops that were affected, that were totally wiped out their stock because of the hurricane. Madam Speaker, just to be clear, every grant must be assessed. So somebody will have to come. You will have to be able to show that you actually had a shop, that you had a fridge, that you had damage. This is not going to be a general grant that, you know, everybody can apply for. And I want to make that absolutely clear, that you would have had to suffer loss, and the loss must be assessed, and then based upon the assessment, a grant will be approved. And I will leave the further details to the Minister of Labour and Social Security to explain how this process will be implemented. So we are allocating for this 200 million Jamaican dollars to get back our small operators, shops, and, you know, small micro enterprise within communities, to get them back up and running. In terms of the national insurance scheme, the life certificate requirement for August payments will be waived generally across the island, so that will help in the quick access of pensions. Through the assessment process, the ministry has increased targeting and identification of beneficiaries for its programs to include social pension and the Jamaica Council of Persons with Disabilities and Senior Citizens. So, Madam Speaker, in this period, whilst the Ministry of Labour and Social Security team is out there doing assessment, we are also trying to identify the persons who should be on the social pension but are not on the social pension. So we will use this as an exercise to get more people on the social safety. Based on the damage assessments received to date, an allocation of 1 billion Jamaican dollars has been made towards providing grants and assistance for restoration, reconstruction, and relocation. Let me repeat that. Based upon the damage assessment, we have allocated $1 billion to provide grants and assistance for restoration, reconstruction, and reallocation. The conditions that we have agreed is that all potential beneficiaries must be assessed. So, yes, there will be persons who have damage, but not every house that is damaged will qualify for grants for restoration, reconstruction, and relocation. Every beneficiary must be assessed. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security will explain further what the criteria is. The criteria, we have established them, but we haven't finalized them. And we can't finalize them until we have the full assessment, because you want your criteria to match what you have assessed. In other words, you wouldn't want to have a criteria that doesn't fit what you have actually observed in the field.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness telling the Parliament the range of loans, grants, and special assistance that is being offered to Jamaicans who have been badly affected by Hurricane Beryl. He also said that he has asked the Development Bank of Jamaica, the DBJ, to provide help for the country's poultry farmers.
In terms of assisting with livelihood, I'm certain that the Minister of Agriculture will, in his presentation, explain a little bit more about how that will be done. But I want to just say that I have asked the DBJ to assist our poultry farmers. Very important. Very important. Just to be clear, the Minister of Agriculture will speak to how we are going to assist the small farmer, the subsistence farmer, the small poultry farmer who is doing, 200 chicken in their backyard. What I'm discussing here would be to ensure that the large poultry farmers who have sustained damage, that they have access to a loan facility, not a grant, a loan facility to get their businesses back up and running. So, due to, Madam Speaker, the hurricane and the impact on the poultry industry, the DBJ will provide a $1 billion line of credit to unlend to the broiler companies and our approved farmers. And, Madam Speaker, the broiler companies will provide a guarantee to the DBJ, and the interest rate to the broiler companies will be about 7.5%, and the broiler companies who have these contracts with the farmers would make the payments. The tenure would be about 8 years, and we would lend approximately 90% of the project recovery cost. So this is an exceptional window, Madam Speaker. $1 billion Jamaican dollars. This is very important for our food security and to ensure that there is no shortage of chicken which could impact price. And that's very, very important. I stress, however, Madam Speaker, that the Minister of Agriculture in his presentation will announce how we will provide grants now for the small chicken farmers who are the backyard chicken farmers, or even some larger ones, but who are not connected to the various broiler companies.
Well.
There's something for everyone.
It would seem so. It would seem so. But while these are good on paper, the deficit of delivering is going to be the big bugbear. Yes? Because to make these things happen, to implement them, that's where the tire will hit the road.
And ensure that those who need the assistance actually get it.
Gets it, yeah. Well, the Prime Minister also gave an update on the restoration of electricity. He said that approximately 655,000 customers of the Light and Power monopoly Jamaica Public Service Company have had their power returned. This represents almost 95% of JPS's customers.
The JPS has reported that it has supplemented its resource pool with former employees as well as engaging local contractors from the bauxite industry assigned to Hanover and St. Elizabeth. In addition, the company is currently engaging CARILEC, that is the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation, CARILEC, to provide support resources in the coming days. We should be getting line workers from countries such as Belize and Cayman who will help JPS to address the outage pockets that exist within the island. Overall, power has been restored to approximately 655,000 customers, which represents 94.6% of the customer base of the country. I need to say this. I want to say this again. Overall, power has been restored to approximately 655,000 customers, which represents 94.6% of the customer base. Madam Speaker, we can only report what the utility company has reported to us. To be clear, Madam Speaker, we do not just accept what is given to us. I am certain that Minister Vaz has interrogated this figure. But it is important that we understand what the figure is saying. What this figure is saying is that the customer base, meaning those persons who have an account with the JPS, that it has been returned. It might be a surprise to many, Madam Speaker, when we start to look at magnitude, that St. Elizabeth itself accounts for approximately 5% of the customer base. And that is a challenge, Madam Speaker. So the customer base is highly concentrated in Kingston and St. Andrew, Spanish Town, Portmore, St. James. So the urban nature of electricity usage. So, Madam Speaker, this is not to say that there are not significant areas that are without electricity. And I want that to be reconciled in the presentation, right? So for context, the broader parish of St. Elizabeth only represents 5% of the total customer base. And that should give, a reasonable expectation in terms of how the return of electricity, Madam Speaker, will be effective.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness there, and importantly, it does appear that the Prime Minister is revealing that we are going to get certainly regional
help
support, yes, in terms of restoring the electricity, which is now becoming a serious pain point for a lot of Jamaicans.
And he did specify that the external help will focus on those small pockets in areas where generally power has been restored.
Right.
Yeah. And I would imagine St. Elizabeth in getting the poles back up as quickly as possible.
See if you can expedite or, speed up that 4-week. They said that by August, they should have power back. See if you can get that done faster. Yeah?
Yeah. You get a sense that he's laser-like focused on getting the recovery up and done very quickly.
Yes, and that's not a surprise. I was doing just a quick check in history, yeah? And usually when there's a hurricane and an election is looming, if it's not managed properly,
you pay a price.
You pay a political price. But I would say so far, so good. As you said, it's just now to ensure that all that is being put in place at the policy level, that the execution on the ground,
the implementation
absolutely is done.
Yeah. But I may go back to a little history as well. Gilbert, September 12, 1988, and the Seaga administration, including the Prime Minister himself. Seaga,
I hear he was a superb manager at the time.
Even his opponents had to give him credit.
Yes.
That Seaga worked. Yes, Jamaica was back in business by the Christmas. 3 months.
3 months.
And we're not talking about a Beryl impact. The entire country was ravaged. Not 3-4 parishes. Yeah. And I remember at the time we had JBC TV nightly news at 7:30. And you would see Seaga walking with water, in a pan, bucket on his head, yes, as part of the relief effort, And the elections were held in February of 1989, and the PNP and Michael Manley won the elections convincingly. So,
but here's
I'm sure Holness and his team must have that in the back of their minds. Yes, Seaga got credit, but yet the people of Jamaica voted for the PNP.
Here's my question, though. What was the situation leading up to September 1988? Had the People's National Party already, in a way, stamped its authority on governance from opposition up
Yeah.
to that point,
Yes.
such that the die was cast and it could not be reversed, even in a situation where Mr. Siaga performed well.
Yeah, I think so. Because the PNP won again the 86 local elections and won it handsomely. Yes? And by then, it was clear that the country was in an anti-government mood. Yes? Which is a parallel to where we are now.
Yes.
Yes? And I suppose that would have motivated Siaga to work extra hard to
right.
turn it around. But he didn't. Yeah? So there's that similarity. The difference, though, in this where we are now,
Mark Golding is not Michael Manley and Andrew Holness is not Edward Siaga.
precisely,
Yes.
Mark Golding is no Michael Manley.
Not even close.
Not even close. Not even a shadow. Yes? And the elections were held in February. They were very close. Very close. The PNP won the 86 local elections by a mile and cantering away. Yeah? Not so this time in terms of February.
Especially with a PNP that had been on the road actively for months leading up to February 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's...
There are variables.
There are variables, there are some parallels, but there are some big differences as well. Yeah.
And we have a while to go. More than a year.
More than a year.
More than a year.